Hello and welcome to Theratay. My name is Katie and I'm with my co-host Ashley. We are not therapy, but we are a really good time. And today we are covering a very special song, Marjorie from Evermore. And we have special guests. We have our friends Lauren and Meredith from TheraSwifts podcast. And these songs, this song in particular, holds a lot of significance to one of our guests. And so I would just love to turn the mic over to you both to introduce yourself and then share a little bit about what the song means to you.
You want to go first?
Sure. Hello, Theratay listeners. My name is Meredith Redding. I'm a therapist in California. I practice in Malibu. Um, and Marjorie is very significant to me because it really was like my initiation into Swiftydom. I talk about this in our podcast, but during the pandemic, I was going through a very difficult time. I was caring for my father, who was coping with Alzheimer's. And I just stepped outside for like a breather and I just had Apple Music sort of like give me a random song. Sometimes I feel like that's my like roll of the dice with the universe, and I'll be like, we'll see what they have to give me. And it gave me Marjorie, and I had no idea it was Taylor Swift. So the whole time I was listening to it, I was like, God, this is an amazing new artist. Really, I want to
This
like find
indie
stuff.
singer-songwriter.
I really did. I literally remember having the thought, like, God, there are so many amazing artists that will never get, like their day in the sun. I thought it was really some like esoteric track. And then I looked down and I was, the back of it was that braid of Evermore. So I still was like, so who is it? And then I found out it was Taylor Swift. So also the lyrics, and we'll go into this, were just, it's like the right songs find you at the right time. And it just had a
Mhm.
way of containing and expressing my grief. And it's really kind of been an anthem through my whole grief process. I lost my dad like a year ago. So it's really like that. Like it's the time capsule of that process in a really beautiful way. I mean, it's sad, but it's a really, really beautiful song.
Mhm. Yeah.
I love how you described it as like a time capsule, like how
Mhm.
one song can just bring you back to this time and this place and these memories. And the fact you didn't know it was Taylor in my mind makes that story a million times better. So
Yeah, it really, yeah. And so then that brought me back to my lovely sister because I started getting, I was like, wait, I think I'm a Swiftie. Like, I really am like a Swiftie.
Yeah, that was one of the most exciting updates of my whole life is my like very cool older sister-in-law who I've been obsessed with and looked up to for 15 years was like, "Will you tell me about Taylor Swift?" I was like, "What's happening?" It's
What a
it's
very
like the
cool.
dream
gift.
question, right? When you're a Swiftie and somebody asks you a question, you're like, hold
Yeah.
on, this is gonna be
Yeah.
a long conversation.
Totally.
It really did
Totally.
start that cascade of like, and then, I think, I fell into then the folklore, and then I just went back and I was like, wait, like I'm a part of this. Like I'm
Hmm.
really a part of this. So
Hmm.
Love
So
it.
fun.
Love it. Thank you so
Well,
much for sharing that.
yeah, and I'm Meredith's sister. I'm Lauren Redding. I'm a therapist in New Jersey. I also am licensed in Pennsylvania and New York. Um, Marjorie, for me, is will always be Meredith's song. And I think like the first time that we ever really got to in depth talk about Taylor Swift was on a road trip that we took together during COVID. It's like the first time our family was sort of reunited in like 2021. And we drove to this water park and we just listened to Taylor Swift the whole way, and I told her all the lore and like the fun history, and I shared how her music really impacted me, particularly through a sexual assault in college and kind of processing that. And Meredith shared this attachment and connection to Marjorie, and so I that song just will forever be like Meredith's song. And when I hear it, I think of you and I think of your dad and how much you love your dad. Yeah.
That's so precious. Thanks for sharing, both of you. And so
Mm.
sorry for your loss, Meredith. But isn't it like such a beautiful thing that Taylor can put these things into words that we have something that we can really connect to and yeah, just like emotionally be able to
Hmm.
express what we need to.
100%. And it's always so beautiful. Like, I think grief in general does this, where you just like get even more invited into like the human family. You're like, oh, I'm part of this club now. Oh, I'm part of this club. But so the idea that Marjorie has this meaning like across the globe for people, or the
Hmm.
Eras tour, just, thousands upon thousands of people with their little cell phone lights. It's like it's
Mm.
pretty powerful. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, so with our podcast, we like to ask these songs as if they were clients, right? So we had the opportunity to do that on your podcast. And if anybody hasn't heard of the TheraSwifts yet, what are you doing with your life? It's time to go over to their podcast, go check out their episode about Marjorie. It's so beautiful. But we like to ask questions. So I had some questions prepared. Is it okay if we shift into that?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have some really beautiful, I think in your episode you called them couplets. Like there's these like connections between kindness and cleverness, politeness and power. And so I would like to ask this person, as if it were a client, how have you seen those connections show up in your life? How have you seen the politeness? And the power and the kindness and the clever and those juxtapositions sometimes connecting. And how do you know if you're balancing them?
Mm.
And then what attributes do you see in yourself that were passed down from this person that you've lost? And then how do you honor this person's memory? I've heard of people like having that person's favorite meal or like
Mm.
having a special like picture or candle or like they visit a grave once a year or something to kind of honor their memory. And then the last one I had was what would be different for you if she was still here?
I really love how you honor the keeping somebody alive with you. I think they're called like rituals, I think is a word that often gets applied, but I think it's a really fitting word because it doesn't have to be anything big or formal, but just this idea of remembrance, of keeping them like alive in your memory is I think really what the song is a lot about.
Hmm.
Totally. And I was just reflecting on this song for a different kind of creative project that we're working on. And she's so brilliant in like speaking of ritual and like, how ancient like grieving rituals are, or like, lament rituals, right? That
Hmm.
go back since the beginning of time. Um, and like she's got that organ. Do you know, like it's actually a very religiously produced song. Like it's
Mm.
like it belongs in like a really amazing church, you know.
Yeah.
And like just even the structure of it feels very hymn-like.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you guys know this because I've spoken with Swifties who did not know this, that that's Marjorie singing
Mhm.
at the end when
Yep.
she was an opera singer.
Yeah.
So it really is literally a way of bringing her into Taylor's
Yeah.
life and her work. And I mean, how many millions of people have heard Marjorie sing now through that song or through, the Eras tour?
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
aware of that fact, but when I heard it, it definitely took my love for the song to a deeper level.
Hmm.
I just was like, how, like, that, wow, what a gift.
Hmm.
What a gift to literally be singing with your grandmother.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I watched the lyric videos to prepare for our songs. And this one is filled with like pictures and videos from like Taylor's time with Marjorie. So like she was like 3 years old and they're like playing the piano together. And like I just think if only she could see her now. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like just such a precious, precious connection that they have.
Mm. It's a
So
real
sweet.
fucking legacy.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
So
You
Lauren,
guys,
oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
you teed me up so beautifully for what would I normalize and validate. So that's my next section. So this is like the soapbox I will be on, one of the soapboxes for the rest of my life. I feel like I could talk about it forever and ever. And it's that our understanding, our Western understanding of grief is just so bonkers wrong. And it really goes back to the five stages of grief model, which was right created by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross back in the 80s. Um, People took that idea of like, okay, there's five different stages of the process of grieving someone, and they really like grabbed onto it and held onto it. I think because for so long we didn't really have any kind of formal conceptualization of grief, at least in the clinical sense. So our culture was really hungry for something that could break down this really overwhelming, indescribable experience of grieving someone. And Elizabeth Kubler-Ross offered up this model, and we just like grabbed onto it. But the thing is that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wasn't writing about the process of grieving for people who have lost a loved one. She was writing about what is the process of grief of people who have been diagnosed with a terminal illness. So she came up with the five stages model. Like, this is what she observed working with like 200 patients in a hospital in New York. And it's beautiful and really does, if you read the original book, like it really, she goes much deeper than like what the five stages would maybe suggest. But we took this idea from her and somehow it got turned into grief is very linear. You start with stage one, you move to stage two, right? You go through in this specific order, and then eventually you get to stage five and acceptance, and everything's okay. And it's like not a big deal that the person died. And because the five stages model is just become it's like so big in pop culture. I even was thinking um Taylor Nation actually, okay, let me back up a second. When Tortured Poets was about to come out, it's like last spring, someone, a Swiftie online, said that they thought that Tortured Poets was going to explore the five stages of grief, this fan theory. And I guess Taylor Nation saw that and thought it was a really cool idea. So they released these Apple Music playlists with categorizing her songs, like her past songs, under playlists for each of the five stages. So even Taylor Nation, like last year, was like, oh yeah, the five stages model, that's how grief works. So all that to say, our culture just has this idea of grief being very tidy and very linear. And um, what we know now from contemporary grief theory is that it couldn't be farther from linear or tidy. And that in addition to never arriving at a place where it feels just okay that the person died, it's actually really important for people to stay connected to the person who died. So that's this idea of continuing bonds. That's one of my favorite more modern grief theories to kind of replace the five stages model. So I would just do a lot of psychoed here in terms of like normalizing and validating that this yearning that you have to be close to Marjorie is very normal and actually very healthy. I do a lot of work with perinatal loss, and I have so many clients who come in and they're like, man, my pregnancy loss was 6 months ago, or a year ago, or 3 years ago. And I don't feel like I'm over it. And I feel like I'm stuck in it. And they have so much shame around that because we have this idea that like you're supposed to be over it by a certain point, right? And so a lot of just normalizing and validating, like, the way that you have been taught grief works is not at all how grief actually works. And the fact that you are missing this person and longing for them and creating these rituals, like that is the work of grief. That actually is the most important, healthiest thing that you can do. And for a long time, even like old therapy texts from like the 80s and 90s talked about what we would call continuing bonds now. They thought of it as very pathological. There was even this like practice where therapists would encourage people to get rid of like mementos that they had from the person who died. Vulcan's regrief treatment, if you're interested in looking it up. So like a therapist would be with like a widower, and if they were still wearing the wedding ring, it was like considered a clinical intervention for the therapist to get them to get rid of it,
Oh,
either to like pawn it or, put it away. And now it's like, I know we're all making the same face. Like, can you imagine a therapist saying that when it's like that is such a tie to the person who died? I've been talking for a long time. Anybody jump in?
I did not know that, Lauren. So thank you for educating me. And I wish I could say that I was surprised, but I'm just not because
Yeah.
there is so much pathologizing that happens in Western medicine. And even the fact that like bereavement is in the DSM, I'm like, this is literally, why
Hmm.
is this in the This is not a disorder, right? This is just an experience, a human
Yeah.
experience. So I'm sadly not surprised. I didn't know that, but please note to anybody listening, like, if you encounter a therapist who's doing that, run. Like, do not sit with a therapist who's
Yeah.
trying to make you quote unquote get over your grief.
Right. We don't get over it. We move forward with it. Is
Yeah.
the
mhm.
language I use.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
a beautiful language.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Right.
really love that you highlighted that sometimes people can feel like they're doing it wrong. Like because
Hmm.
they are going in these different directions outside of like the linear thing that we understand.
Yeah.
It feels like, well, these feelings are wrong, then what's wrong with me? And there's nothing wrong with you. You're having a human experience that is very normal and expected. We just haven't put it into words very well.
Yeah. It's
I totally agree, Lauren. This will sort of foreshadow my responses, but like to me, this is like a model of healthy mourning. Like this is what you
this
put,
is it.
like they're like the whole arc of it, right? Like it's not one note, no pun intended. Like there's the agony, there's the longing, there is the connection with her, but there's also the missing, right? Like
Hmm.
it doesn't sugarcoat. Like she's here and she's gone.
Hmm.
Hmm.
That's the dialectic that, yeah, of course,
Hmm.
sort of our often patriarchal original
Hmm.
theories so try to kind of reduce, into something very concrete. Like, is there anything in life where you're just done? Like
Right.
a single thing, do you know? Like, so of course there's going to be something more um, like evolving and
Yeah.
fluid, and you don't get the satisfaction of being like, well, that pain will never return. Like, no,
Yeah.
that's not how it works either. But I'm still kind of like pulling myself together from the idea of a therapist telling someone to pawn their wedding ring. It's really
Yeah. Isn't that wild? Like
there's
the textbook literally says like you have to be very authoritative.
Mm.
Like you have to be very stern with the client and get them to
that
sever ties with the deceased.
almost like,
Bonkers.
I don't know, maybe. Um, Not to go too kind of inside baseball, but for as bad a rap as Freud gets, and often rightly so, he did posit the exact same thing, and he was always really open about revising his theories. It's just his disciples didn't always like evolve with him.
Mm.
So in the beginning, he had this idea of like, no, part of grieving is having to relinquish the object, like having to accept that they're gone, which of course is a version of that. A version of that is true, like not a psychotic denial of like they're home,
Sure.
you know. But he really did revise it that like literally it feels like Marjorie is his idea of um, again, this dialectic of letting go and carrying forward.
Hmm.
But in a psychoanalytic lens, like the people that mean the most to us literally are in our mind.
Hmm.
You know, like we are composed of those people, right? Not even just like, oh, that Marjorie part. Like it's so much more intersubjective even than that, right? So finding a way of like really carrying that forward, like it becomes part of your ego,
Hmm.
we can feel like our power or our wisdom from certain
Hmm.
people that leave that imprint. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that a complex part of this too, like especially when you're talking about like prenatal loss, Lauren, like when I work with clients who've gone through that, sometimes it's like from other people that they get that pressure, that narrative that you need to like let this go, or
Hmm.
if it involves like you have multiple children and one of them passes, and it's like, well, then you have these others to focus on, and like kind of what you were saying, Meredith, about like that they're with you, like that never ever changes, but sometimes we have to like we're put in that position of somebody else imposing this idea that you need to be, and kind of, and then that can become an internalized shame as well.
Totally.
There's just so much discomfort with the idea of grief,
Yep.
and discomfort with suffering in general, and that's just a really hard thing to navigate when you're already suffering the loss of somebody else saying like,
You know what's so wild, you guys? Like, I literally, I'm a grief and loss therapist, and like before anything else, I talk about this stuff all day, every day. I do trainings on it for other therapists. Last week, Meredith and I had a conversation where I was like, I'm just having a really hard time and I'm like feeling really sad about my divorce and I don't know why because my divorce was like final in April and I've been feeling really good about it and like good about this next chapter. And Meredith's like sitting with me in
Course,
it.
I was like, well, you should be over it by
Yeah,
now.
no, right, no.
Cool.
But Meredith very gently is like, "Do you think there's anything going on that's like bringing these feelings up?" And I'm like, "Well, my son just had his birthday, and August is the anniversary of when we separated, and September is gonna be would have been our 10-year anniversary." And I was like saying,
Random.
well, and I was
Random.
like, no
Pathological.
shit, I'm grieving.
Yeah.
Like, but even for me, who's like literally a person who knows this stuff so deeply, you're so right, Katie. Like, it's so ingrained in our culture and I think our expectations of women especially that we're supposed to like bounce back and move on. I even caught myself being like I'm feeling really sad about my divorce and I'm like feeling a lot of shame and embarrassment about it. And like
Mm.
Meredith so beautifully like helped me sit with it and look at it and by the end of the phone call I was like, okay, I'm good.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think that really points out how important it is to have community, right? Like
Yeah.
whether it's another person or a therapist, like bouncing these things off of each other and helping each other like stay healthy and remember these important pieces is so important. It's what is a big part of why therapy works
Yeah.
because somebody can say, okay, this is what I'm seeing. Like, are you seeing this too?
Yeah.
I love that you were there for each other.
yeah.
I also think, go ahead.
Please go ahead, Meredith.
I was just going to add, I mean, there's no doubt. I think that, our, especially America, let alone Western culture, is so kind of phobic of our mortality and we just want to be omnipotent. And there's definitely a patriarchal piece too. I also think there's just like a human, like even under ideal cultural circumstances, I think people just um, don't like reminders that they're not in control.
Yeah.
So I can really understand, in addition to like more nefarious kind of aims, like why Kubler-Ross's model would take off.
Hmm.
Something about it that's so finite. Do you
Yep.
know? Algebra
Yeah,
equation. And
Totally.
and it's just like you work hard and then you'll hit that point and then on some level maybe I'll never die. Like it's like there's a defensive quality to things that are really
right.
concrete
Yeah.
out. And
Like
I that's
almost like,
like
your suffering is infectious. I might get your contagion. I don't want to catch your thing.
that's literally what I say to, I mean, to friends, but especially patients that are like, I don't know how to approach her. Like, what do you think I should do? Or should I read a book? Or like all lovely things. But I'm like, work on your own grief.
Mm.
That's what, like, remember your own grief because everyone has it. Some people may not have had the capital G grief, not that it's up to me to say what a capital G grief is, but some
Mhm.
people have had more experience of loss than others. But I'm like, the more you are intimate with your own relationship, even to the topic,
Yeah.
the more available you are to someone, you know?
Yeah. Yes, that's so good. So good. Any last thoughts on this question before we move on? No? Okay, so I have the next question, which is what would I challenge and recommend? And this was a tricky one because this song, like we've talked about, is just honestly perfect. But as I was like, revisiting the song, I heard regret. And
Yeah.
there's just this sense of like, if I didn't know better, or I was complaining the whole way there, or you always did things, like, and there was just this little sense of like, wow, like I feel like there's a part where like you wish you had held on to those scraps, or you wish you had done, kept the grocery receipts. I love the specificity in the song. That's like one of my
Mm.
favorite things I've heard, for the mundane details that become so significant. And I would really want to invite my client to sit in the potential feelings of regret,
Mm.
because it's really reflecting on the past and wishing that parts of it were different. Typically in regards to like your own actions, what you maybe did or didn't do.
Mm.
Um, and this is hard and sad, and this is the harsh reality of grief, is that there is no going back. There's
Mm.
just being present in the now. So I think that I would really gently ask that client if they'd be willing to countenance that regret,
Mm.
Mm.
and doing that in a way that doesn't force it. It can come slowly over time. It moves at its own pace. That's okay.
Mm.
And I think that regret can kind of move into grief, when you allow yourself to just see it for what it is. Allow
Mhm.
yourself to be sad about something that did or didn't happen. And I would really celebrate the client's ability to hold on to their love for this person, by keeping them alive in their, like we talked about, in their memory and their head and their actions. Um, and yeah, I think that's the only, like, I don't think there's anything to challenge necessarily, of like to confront in this song,
Yeah.
but more just allowing this person to sit with like an uncomfortable emotion like regret, um, and just allow that to be what it is. And I don't necessarily think that there's always a lesson to be learned. I think that's something I commonly see and hear, is
Mhm.
people wanting their suffering to have some kind of meaningful answer. And like, you might come away with something meaningful, but you don't have to slap on some existential,
Right.
like, here's why this happened. Sometimes
Let's
it's just
get
like,
tidy again, right?
yeah, it's just it's shitty. It just happened. And there it is, and we just have to live with it. And there's not a lesson to be learned. And it didn't happen to teach you a lesson. It was just
Yeah.
there. And like you talked about, I loved your language there, Lauren, about you grow with it, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
And so that's what I really work with myself and my own clients, of like, we grow around our grief. The grief
Mhm.
never changes. Our regret
Mhm.
never change, but we grow in relationship to those things. So
I
that's what I
love,
think.
yeah, I love that you bring up regret because I definitely think that's one of the, it's an emotion that comes up a lot with clients I work with who are grieving, and there's a lot of shame around it. And I think the other side of the coin of regret is jealousy. And that's another really significant grief emotion. So yeah, it's like people have this idea that grief is just depression and then it's anger and it's either one or the other. It's like, no, there's a whole um, array of emotions that can come up when you're grieving, and really validating and normalizing them is so important.
It's such a great point, Lauren. I hadn't thought about that. But yeah, like the nature of jealousy is people have things that I don't have and I want them.
Mhm.
And loss is by its definition losing
Yeah.
something you desperately don't want to lose.
Yeah.
And yeah, so to give permission for that, I think is really
Mhm.
astute. I also love, I mean, I got a sense of both of you, and your depth and ethos from your podcast and from our crossover. But it's funny just because I think this is such a um, kind of, to me, disturbing trend in kind of positive psychology in the culture.
Yes.
Well, I didn't expect this from you, but as you were talking about regret, I thought, oh no, is she gonna like be like, you did everything you could? Or,
Oh,
not that I don't get
yeah.
empathy for therapists, but I think
Yeah.
a lot of maybe newer therapists or just the culture of kind of like therapy by listicle,
Yep.
Yes.
is and I'm like so pro regret,
Yeah.
I'm pro reality. And
Yeah.
like as long as of course making space for like, detoxifying the toxic shame or,
Right. So having self-compassion. Yeah.
or and sometimes there's blame that really is unwarranted and problematic, and that can be, really kind of maybe playing with frames. But I think just like to be human is to regret. And then with loss, like you never have all of the time that you want. Like that's the
Hmm.
nature of the law, right? Like
Right.
even
Exactly.
with really beautiful losses, like it's never like I got every single moment I wanted with that like you love them. So
Yeah.
I love just really like opening the space for that regret to breathe and not fixing it or, wiping it away. Or my mentor says, one of my mentors says, reassurance isn't reassuring.
Oh,
It's
I
like
love
right
that.
away it feels like the therapist is transmitting, like, can you not sit with your own regrets?
Hmm.
Like, why are you like so kind of relieving me of something that actually this space is meant to help me carry, right?
Hmm.
And integrate.
Right. The psychological soothing that goes on, right?
Uh-huh.
Like,
Yeah.
well,
That
that's
is soothing.
uncomfortable. Like, let me
Yeah.
just like, soothe that away. But
Hmm.
emotions like don't need to be soothed; they need to be expressed.
Like
Hmm.
Marjorie is hard to listen to sometimes. Do you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's boring. I mean, it is for me. I mean, I love it, but like it's not a light listen for
Hmm.
me.
Hmm.
But that's the work of grieving, right? So I love how you framed that. I think that's really beautiful.
What would you encourage, Mayor?
Okay. I think this is the type of thing, and these sessions, I think we've all hopefully like been gifted. In psychoanalysis, there's a saying that like the best interpretation, which I know is kind of old school language, but the best interpretation is the one the patient makes, right? So it's like, oh my God, if this song walked in, I would definitely say as little as possible, right? Like
Hmm.
there's really not a lot I would want to um, impose or pollute or crowd, because this, you know, potentially is like this is the culmination of maybe the value of the therapy, or like
Hmm.
I would take this or just something really potent, working through the patient. Um, so I think like at the end, if this song was a patient, I think I would really just try to have, I know I would be deeply moved, and that would be kind of in the energetic field with both of us. And I really probably would just hold the space and hold the silence. And I was just reading this book about like music and psychoanalysis, and they talk about, the like the in music, like a rest is a note, like a
Mm.
is a note, it is its own kind of music, and it amplifies what's already been played. And so I really think I would just like feel the resonance and hold that to allow this like wisdom and healing of the continuing bonds and of the integration. And as just like this is to me is an example of like mourning being mobilized.
Hmm.
Like there's no wrong way to grieve, but I think people can get stuck because grief is really hard,
For sure.
and that no shame in that. But like, I think we know we're in a healing process when things are flowing, even if it's really painful. And there's so much movement to this song.
Hmm.
Like I said, like it feels like it's this kind of elegy and this love song, but there's also a tremendous amount of ache. And so I really feel like I would just hold the space to allow the patient's process to like reverberate and expand. Um, there's a John Cage has a line that I thought of where he says, I have nothing to say and I'm saying it. Like that's what I would like
Mm.
try to offer as encouragement. But I'm not dodging the question. So I would do a couple more things besides just really trying to like be as present as possible. Because I think like this is a like a session that's like self with a capital S. Do you know where
Yeah.
like, or there's that also a phrase that Freud borrowed from the Greeks, which is like the doctor dresses the wounds, God gives the cure. Do you know? Like, okay, whoa, so like we've done the dressing and now like something else is happening and I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to get in the way.
Totally.
But if there was then subsequent processing, I think some of my parting like encouragement reflections or take homes would be um, Gabor Mate has some of these questions that are really lovely in his compassionate inquiry approach, like who who is the part of you that knows? Like who knows this? Um, and then also trying to encourage, maybe not too explicit, because I wouldn't want to get like didactic, but um, there's so much refrain of like, if I didn't know better, or like, I know better, but, and I would just want to somehow transmit or reflect that like this knowing is true.
Mm-hmm.
That this, like this knowing, this is knowing. It's not intellectual, it's not
Mm-hmm.
cognitive, but it requires absolutely no justification. Like there's like I am 1000% on board that this is happening and it's happening between us. And then maybe in a kind of ADP way, I would just encourage like embodying that knowing. Like, where do you
Yeah.
feel this? Where do
Yeah.
you hear her? How do you hear her? Is there an image? Is there a symbol? Like, where is it in your body? I would notice where I'm feeling it in my body.
Mhm.
Um, and somehow, again, I probably wouldn't even want to put this into words because I feel like like it's already, it's there, but somehow encouraging and reflecting, like just to keep listening and
Mm-hmm.
that this resource is infinite. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
forever. And so, probably subsequent sessions would be like trying to tap back into this kind of deep wisdom and deep connection and continuing bond. Um, and yeah, and to keep listening.
Mm. Love that. One of my favorite things to do with clients, especially who, like you just described, Mare, like they are really doing the work and you're just like in the presence of it. Um, Inviting them to bring something into session that belonged to the person and showing it to you. So again, I work with perinatal loss, so a lot of times it'll be a little hospital, blanket and hat, or an ultrasound, and that bearing witness to the pain and the grief and the evidence that that person was real, is so like sacred. Um, yeah.
I love how you talked about making space for those emotions and making space for someone's process and making space for the pain, essentially. Like, because you're one of the, I think, privileges of being a therapist is I get to watch somebody metabolize their pain and suffering in real time.
Hmm.
And Dr. Resma Medican in his book, My Grandmother's Hands, which is a
Hmm.
phenomenal read, but he talks about clean pain and dirty pain. And I have used I've borrowed from his work so much and naming that for clients of like some pain is meant to be felt and that is clean pain. Right. And so for listeners, this idea of like clean pain, like a bone that needs to be reset or something, or like you're going through a treatment and it's painful, but it's doing something good for your body, or like exercise that doesn't lead to injury, right? Like that can be clean pain versus like dirty pain where it's just the pain of like avoidance or the pain of distraction or whatever.
Yep.
And so just sit in with clients and be like, this is painful, but this is the clean, good pain that
Mm,
births really good movement, like you were saying. Like, so long as there's fluidity, so long as there's flow, good work is happening.
totally. Grief is such a muscle. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like anything when you go to the gym for the first time and try to like bench press, it's like really fucking hard. You don't have any tolerance for it.
Yes.
But the more you work it and like the more you lend space for it, the more you're able to tolerate slowly over time.
Right. I love that word tolerate, which is another great Taylor Swift song, but like just the word tolerating, like learning to increase your capacity to tolerate something
Mhm.
and not expecting yourself to be able to bench press a 100 couple 100 pounds. Like no, like
Yeah.
you're just pushing the bar, whatever that is, 25, 45, like that's awesome. Your body will let you know when it's time to move on. Going back to what you were saying, Meredith, about like the wisdom of your body and listening to what
Hmm.
your body brings forward.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I love that.
yeah. I love all of the metaphors too of like healing or a therapeutic process. And certainly I think this applies to grief. Like we're like midwives to a process.
Yeah,
Midwife doesn't like give birth. Nobody can give birth, but that
totally.
and even the woman isn't totally giving birth. Like the baby also has to be affected.
Yeah.
And but so like when do you lean in and then and it's really painful and there's lots of waves and you have to keep pushing. Uh, but there's also like new life. So yeah, I think
Hmm.
when therapists are able to transmit that like what's happening really matters, maybe it's even like sacred.
Yeah.
um, I know for me, when I was giving birth, each time I was given a little kind of education or even just energetic kind of like reflection, like think this is how it has to be, right? The excruciating pain was like, oh, well, if this is what's necessary for me to meet my son, then suddenly the subjective experience of it wasn't even nearly as bad, right? It's like
Right,
nothing, right?
right.
Like no danger. This is just agonizing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
at the end, there's going to be new life. And I think that's
Mm,
Marjorie too, right? Like
Mm.
there is this new life. There's her voice, there's a new voice, and there's a creative thing. Like I do think that grief really can be, not to romanticize it, but the possibility with enough like tending and care and lots of support is that it is a creative process, right? Like
Hmm.
conversation with the loved one evolves and like in the absence is a new kind of presence, you know. Shout out, I have a brilliant autistic teenage client who just processed the loss, like her first major loss. I got her permission to share all of this. um, her first major loss in her life, which was her childhood dog, right? Which is
Mm.
like big
Yeah.
a loss, I think, as it comes
Yep.
sometimes. Like just that first initiation of like childhood leaving time being impermanent. And she is a math wizard. And she said, oh my God, right. She said, well, you know, subtraction is creative too. Subtraction is its own kind of addition.
Oh,
And so that was like a Marjorie moment where I was like, you said it, sister.
yeah.
That's that you are like that is the well inside of you. We get to
Hmm.
just enjoy it and I get to get
Hmm.
better from it, you know.
Yeah.
That is a mic
wow.
drop moment. I like you feel myself like tearing up and getting
Yeah.
emotional. I'm like, whoo,
Right.
wow.
Mm.
I know.
Yeah.
I
That's
know.
I will be
beautiful.
sitting with that. Those are some words of wisdom from your client for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw somebody sharing a poem on Instagram about grief, and I'll link it in the show notes as well. And I don't have the poem memorized, but she said something like grief, kind of personifying grief, like you're welcome in my home as much as it hurts
Mm.
to see you. I'm welcoming you here. Let me get some tea. Let's sit
Yeah.
together.
That's
Hmm.
Andrea Gibson who just passed. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
It's
Hmm.
just her
beautiful.
thing on my
Okay.
amazing, amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get a cup of tea, like
Hmm.
sit with me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't realize that that was who that was. Yeah, it was gorgeous. So I'll link that in the show notes, but it just was so connecting.
Just
Hmm.
a quick question. Are any of you familiar with the book Tear Soup?
Hmm.
Okay, it's an old book written by Pat Schweber and Chuck DeCline. And the cover of it looks like something straight out of like 1990. But like it is a children's book, but it's written about grief and it is a metaphor of making soup with your tears. and all the ingredients that go into like to your soup. And it is a gorgeous metaphor for grief. It is a very simple, easy read. If you
Mm.
haven't read it, like maybe pick it up at like, a used bookstore. It's well worth your time, but it's basically really honors the process of grief, the time
Mm.
of grief, being misunderstood in grief. And so if you're looking for like a short, easy read that just like really encapsulates it, Tear Soup is a really amazing book.
Mm.
Love.
We can't do that enough, I think, for our kids. Do you know,
Yeah.
our own phobias so play into that, but to really normalize this part of life, from the beginning and naming it so it's not
Mhm.
stir under the bed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just a little something to look up if you're interested, and to our listeners as well. It can be really sometimes useful to have little metaphors that help us provide language to that grief, just like you were sharing with that poem. Actually, like this is the grief, this is the gift of poets in our society, right?
Mhm.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, this is such a deep topic, and a really sad song. But I can't help but just like smile this whole time because this conversation just means so much. Like this is such an it makes me feel alive inside to have
Mm.
this like conversation and to have four therapists talking about grief. We could probably talk for 8 more hours. But is there anything like any final thoughts about Marjorie or this song or grief that you guys want to make sure to say before we wrap up?
I just think of, I don't, Mary, you've said this before. I don't know who this quote comes from, but grief diminished is, or sorry, grief shared is grief diminished. And the power of Taylor and all her songs, but particularly the ones that are sort of surrounding grief. We get to share our grief with her when we listen to these songs, and that's she's like the fifth therapist in the
It's so
room.
true.
Marjorie as the
Yeah,
like ancestor.
yeah.
So true. Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, do one of you want to share where our listeners can find you? I know we'll be doing another episode in a couple of weeks, but I'd love for them to be able to hear that.
Yeah, definitely. You can find us on Instagram at TheraSwifts Pod. And then you can find our show, TheraSwifts, wherever you get your podcasts.
We're so thankful to have you guys join us. And if you guys want to follow us on Instagram, our handle is therataypodcast. And then if you want to request a song, you are welcome to do so at therataypodcast@gmail.com. And thank you, Jeremy, for editing this podcast. And we will see you guys later.
Thank you.